Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Daunte Wright. Now, I'm sure a number of you may have known yesterday there was a shooting, and a police officer had shot Daunte Wright. It was in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, as he had been evading the police. Daunte Wright apparently had crashed into another car, and he succumbed to the gunfire. And he sadly he did pass away because of this, and a lot of people in that area are, and I'm sure around the country and world, maybe even are incensed by this. And there was even I believe it was tear gas was used to try to diffuse the crowd or try to prevent them, some people from protesting. Now look at the chart. Okay, this. Well, first thing I want to do though is I want to offer my condolences and prayers to the family and close friends of Daunte Wright by some remote chance they happen to see this video. When I as far as the chart goes, I'm going to talk about some placements, aspects, or what have you in the chart that might have contributed, played a role in his passing. Now, the time has been stated. My research is online. I mean, this happened on, of course, it was April 11, 2001, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Approximate time 2 p.m. Of this event and of the murder, killing. And the sun was involved. Aries had the ascendant was in Leo at this time, and the moon was also in Aries. So you have, I mean, obviously you have, noon. This is at a time. It was actually very shortly before the exact, not too far away from the exact conjunction of the new moon in acerbic Aries. It was about looks like about 4 degrees difference between 3.5 degree difference between the moon and the sun placement. At this time, the sun is that close to the moon, it could shine the light, so to speak, on emotional energy. It could be very acrimonious type of emotions going on at this time. And the thing about, I mean, having Leo being at the ascendant at this time, I mean, I wouldn't say there was very flamboyant energy in connection with this event, but what it was something that did garner a lot of attention, notoriety, and exposure, of course. And this was something too. Looking at this as well. I mean, I'm seeing, some other points in the chart that Scorpio falls on the 4th house cusp in the event chart, and that could indicate the end of life by murder. Pisces. So what I want to say is that, well, first off, is that one of the rulers of that 4th house is in the 11th house of social media, groups of people. So this may have actually happened in front of many people. I don't know that, though. I didn't research it that thoroughly to see if that was the case. But the fact that Mars is in Gemini, I mean, he was, interestingly enough, he was fleeing the scene in a vehicle. I mean, Mars can be connected with violence, and Gemini can be associated with driving. Mars is gunfire as well. He was shot while driving away. In this chart too, Mars is also making a tight square to Neptune. And looking at this is about, I mean, your action. This could be an indicator. Mars is action oriented. Again, Gemini is connected with mobility, could be with driving vehicles. Those actions were conflicting with surrendering. Neptune can be associated with surrendering. It's in the sign of surrender. It's also in the 8th house of death in this event chart. As well, I'm looking at this, that Pisces falls on the eighth house cusp in this chart. Now, that could be an indicator of a death, a killing. That might be confounding, really, and I'm sure a lot of people really are confused by this, that this person was shot and killed. He was evading. I mean, he was fleeing the officer. The thing about this is, I don't know, like, where he was shot. I don't mean the geographic location. I'm talking about what part of his body was he shot. The thing about it too is, I don't know. I researched a little bit in trying to find how Daunte Wright's birth information. I couldn't find his birth date online. Um, the thing about it is, because I wanted to look and see where his Mars was and Chiron, and see if that, maybe that could have given an indicator of maybe where he was shot. The transit, though, the fact that, I mean, Mars is in Gemini, I mean, by itself could give some injury to the, arms, the shoulders, or hands. This was also, again, while he was driving, he had the accident. Mars could be connected with accidents. Gemini, again, is associated with driving. Transit Chiron is in Aries at the time of this event. It was also conjunct Mercury. And Mercury can be associated with driving and short journeys. Excuse me a second, people, I'm sorry. But anyway, another thing I noticed too, about the chart, is that Mars and Pluto are in conjunct each other. Now, when you have in conjuncts in astrology, they could be about adjustments. It could be about too much of one thing or too much of another. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But when you have those in conjuncts, um, again, they can be about too much of one thing or another. Mars and Gemini, I mean, Mars can be volatile, and you have Gemini, being, associated with driving vehicles, short journeys. Pluto and Capricorn, I mean, that could be about power of authority. The thing about it is, and also maybe power and having some kind of discipline or restraint. Now, could it be, in this particular case, there wasn't enough power and discipline, maybe, because, the cops wind up shooting, this person, fleeing the scene, fleeing, trying to evade arrest after they had figured out that he had a warrant on him for an arrest. And the thing is, and it's interesting because they're also, those are the two, I guess you could call them, like, handle planets of the, the formation, whatever, in this chart, the end planets, rim planets, which makes those planets even more prominent. Again, Mars could be connected with gunfire. Pluto is associated with death. Pluto being in Capricorn, death, it's at the hands of, sadly, of an authority figure, somebody, in this case, in the law and law enforcement. And then Pluto is also at critical degree 26 in Capricorn. Also, too, Mars is at that dreaded kill or be killed degree 22 in Gemini, and again, Gemini being associated with driving and short journeys, mobility. Another thing about this as well, when I'm looking at this chart, is that you have in the ninth house is a very strong concentration of Aries energy. And Aries, of course, is acrimonious, it's volatile, it can be associated with gunfire, with wounds, and it's in the ninth house of the law. And another thing, too, is that looking at this, Uranus is conjunct the midheaven in this case. And this was something where, I mean, The midheaven, is a point of notoriety and exposure. Um, it's a point too. I mean, when you have, I mean, it's the highest elevated planet in the chart, and which of course can make it prominent. And as well, Uranus is, I mean, given that it's over. I mean, Uranus could be connected with protests, and the thing about this is there was apparently a lot of protesting, at the time after this shooting took place, after the killing of Daunte Wright. You have, interestingly enough, you do have Neptune in the eighth house in this chart, so it's not surprising a lot of gas was used. Tear gas, I believe it was, after the death of Daunte Wright, because it was used on the crowd to try to disperse them and prevent protesting, I believe it was, to some degree. So, anyway, I'm just trying to see if there's anything else about this chart that might be tied in with his passing and Daunte Wright's passing. Another thing I noticed too is that one of the rulers of the eighth house is in the eighth house, so that could be a death through what could be seen as a murder. Some people may not see it as that. And another thing is that another ruler of the eighth house, Jupiter, is in the seventh house, so that's an indicator of a death through law enforcement. And another thing too I'm seeing is that Saturn in cool detached Aquarius is conjunct the seventh house cusp. So I think the perception means seventh house could be people connected with the law. The fact that it's Saturn is conjuncted and again very cool detached with Aquarius shows that perception of the law was maybe, law enforcement at this time might have been very cool and detached at this moment as well. So the reality is that people just have to understand. I mean, it's just terrible that we're having so many just unnecessary deaths in life, and that can be avoided. People don't always need to act so impulsively, on matters. I'm wondering if the police could have maybe just shot one of his tires or something, as opposed to shooting Daunte. I don't know how that works in law enforcement as far as protocol and what you can do in certain situations, but if you had been able to shoot one of the tires, that would have prevented Daunte Wright from fleeing at a rapid rate, and the cops likely would have had a better chance, of course, to catch up with him and apprehend him. So it's just something to actually to look at and to really understand that people have done things in life. I mean, in general, I mean, a lot of actions are done, sadly, on impulse, and they're done really recklessly and without really thinking before acting. And a lot of that energy, in this case, the fact that in this chart there were 4 planets in Aries, and then Chiron was included in this as well. And in the event chart, they all make a series of conjunctions with each other, starting with Chiron in Aries. And Chiron can be connected with wounds. It wouldn't surprise me if he was shot in the head, because Aries is connected with the head, the face, the brain. And those series of conjunctions with the planets ended with Venus in Aries. It actually, if you want to count the midheaven, it ends with the midheaven in Taurus. But Venus being in Aries, of course, Venus in Aries is in its detriment. And it's also it was at a critical degree at 26 degrees. Venus, sadly, in Aries could be about valuing, in early negative manifestation could be about the valuing of violence, of volatile energy, gunfire. Um, and also I noticed too that the sun was also at that dreaded 22nd kill or be killed degree, 22 degrees. The sun in Aries was at 22 degrees as well at this time. But anyway, people, that will conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.